Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 839A, and today's date is December 10th, 2015, and the title of the episode is Wealth Confiscation Phase is Almost Complete. Next phase, the Big Reset. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, out in Spain, the government there is telling everyone how great the economy is doing. The economy is firing on all cylinders. Everything looks good. The world should be looking at Spain as a shining example of how well the economy can do. They're saying the economy is going to be growing by 3% this year. And when you look at the economy a little bit closer, it seems the government employees always exaggerate quite a bit about how their country is doing or how the economy is doing. And we see this throughout Europe. We see it in Canada, Australia, and the United States. And when you look at the economy, poverty is growing at a startling rate. Unemployment continues to hover above 20%. And public debt is almost 3 times what it was at the beginning of the crisis. So yeah, this economy is just doing fantastic in Spain. No, it's not. And what's happening is that we're coming towards the end of these systems. And as we approach the end game here, the governments need to convince you that the economies are doing well, to keep you blindsided about what's really going on here. And looking at Spain's economy is so fragile right now that the Spanish banks basically have a huge risk of exposure. Many banks have been caught engaging in abusive mortgage lending practices and could end up having to pay back customers billions of euros. There are currently about 2.5 million mortgages with floor clauses in Spain. If refunds were to be mandated retroactively, it would mean billions, perhaps tens of billions of euros in payments. And the banks would not be able to handle this, and they would need to be bailed out. So is Spain doing as well as the government employees are saying? No, it is not. And this goes with almost every single country in the private Western central bank system. Some are a little bit worse off than others, but they're all heading in the same direction. Here in the United States, we have one of the biggest illusions going. We saw this back in 1929, leading up to the Great Depression, where Europe was completely falling apart. And when everyone looked at the United States, the stock market was soaring. It was the roaring 20s. Everything was fine. And then before you knew it, everything came to a screeching halt and collapsed. We're seeing the same thing right now. From all the layoffs from last year to this year, reported by Challenger Gray and Christmas, approaching 1 million layoffs, it's getting harder and harder for the government to manipulate these numbers. And we know the economy is basically taking a dive here. We know retail sales are completely down. And it looks like it's going to be a lot worse than they're saying. They're already estimating that their estimates were a little bit higher than what really happened on Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And it might be even a little bit worse than everyone thought. And going throughout the rest of this year, I don't think it's going to improve whatsoever. But the initial claims, the initial jobless claims, they pushed up around 13,000 to 282,000. This is the highest claim since early July. And when we look at this, we can see there are more layoffs coming up already. Rabobank Group this is international, is going to lay off 9,000 people. University of Western Australia, 300. Cisco, 120. Chart Industries, 105. And the layoffs just keep on coming. I mean, this is just a little snapshot, but the number of layoffs from many different companies, which are, 50 here, 40 there, 30 there, they continually add up. And when you add up all of this, we're approaching 1 million layoffs since June of 2014. Now, Fannie and Freddie, they always do this during the holiday season. They basically give a small gesture to struggling homeowners. They don't foreclose and evict the people from their houses during the holiday. So from December 18th to January 3rd, those people can stay in their homes. As soon as January 3rd hits, well, guess what? They can be evicted from their homes. And we're seeing a lot of people that are having a very tough time this holiday season. We're seeing that they're struggling, trying to make ends meet, and more people are coming into this mix. And basically, this whole entire nation right now is slipping away. I mean, the middle class right now doesn't really even exist. They slipped into the poor poverty section. And right now, the middle class is a minority in the United States. And right now, as we go into next year, this is not going to turn around. It's just getting worse and worse as time goes on. And for the first time in U.S. history, we haven't seen anything like this. A new analysis of government data shows that as of 2015, middle-income households have become the minority, extending a multi-decade decline that confirms basically that this society of the United States that we live in right now is completely falling apart. 49.9% of all Americans now live in a home that receives money from the government each month. Sadly, the trend is completely destroying the middle class in America, and it's going to accelerate. Back in 1971, about 2 out of 3 Americans lived in middle-income households. Since then, the middle has been steadily shrinking, and we heard about this years and years ago. And here we are today. I mean, middle-income Americans not only have shrunk as a share of the population, but have fallen further behind financially, with their median income down 4% compared with the year of 2000. And we can see right now that it's getting harder and harder for people just to make ends meet. So when we look at America right now, what do we see? Well, we see retail contracting, sales in the retail industry is shrinking, stores are closing, the housing market is not catering to the American family anymore. Most of the sales are coming from hedge funds, investment companies, from foreign investors, but the foreign investors are now drying up. And they're doing whatever they possibly can to bring in the American people into the mix, but the American people are tapped out. And housing prices are starting to fall right now. And housing, if you're trying to sell right now, in many of the cities, they are staying on the market longer and longer. So the government had to come out and manipulate inflation, manipulate the calculation of GDP, manipulate unemployment. Basically, they had to manipulate the entire economy to make it look good. The Baltic Dry Index has fallen again to 534. During this time of year, usually it's around 1,000, 1,100. Sometimes it was at 1,400. This is very, very low. And what's very interesting right now is that corporate insiders, they are dumping their stocks. And they're selling their shares at near record levels. So why isn't this a surprise that insiders are bailing? Well, revenues have been falling for the past year in many of the industries, and commodities have cratered. And after years and years of boosting reported profits with various kinds of financial engineering, financial tinkering, financial manipulation, corporations seem to have run out of tricks. Earnings have begun to reflect reality, and it's not pretty, because what we're seeing right now, earnings taking a dive. And remember that insiders are selling while the corporations they run continue to buy back huge numbers of shares with borrowed money. The implication? They're supporting their stock in order to get out while the getting is good. So we already see the inside people are saying, okay, it's time to sell. This tells you something. This tells you that they're selling at the height of the market. The corporations are continually buying to enable them to do this. And hopefully the people on Main Street aren't looking at this saying, hey, this is a great time to buy this stuff, because insiders, the people with the knowledge of when this is coming down, usually get out at the top. They don't wait for the market to fall. And they try to basically remove themselves from the picture and cash in on their profits. And this is what we're seeing. We also see them take huge risks, and they try to prosper on the downside. But right now, they're looking at everything and saying, okay, it is time to get out. So what are we seeing right now? Well, we understand the economy has been through the harvest phase, where the wealthy, the 5%, basically are stealing the wealth from the rest of the country. This is the harvest phase. We are now coming out of the harvest phase, and we're heading into the global reset. And Russia, China, the BRICS, it's all part of the same system, and everything is flowing from west to east. Now remember, central bankers have no allegiance to any country. They really don't care. As long as they make a profit and they can set up their central banking system in whatever country they're in. So right now, what we're seeing is there's a new system evolving. We see the yuan becoming a reserve currency. They got the green light. It's going to be included in the SDR basket. And this plan was outlined decades ago by the Rothschilds' own magazine, The Economist. And we're witnessing the plan right now. And what we're seeing is they're getting ready for the big global economic reset. And we have to realize that the central banking system, the Fed, they know exactly what's happening. They can't keep the system going, and eventually it has to come down. But since the central banking system is running the world right now, they don't want to be blamed for this. Because how would they convince everyone it's in their best interest to move everything from the west to the east? So to distract everyone, they need some type of an event. They need a war. They need something. And after the war, they can say, okay, let's set up a new, entirely different system. Oh, look, China has manufacturing. Oh, look, they have gold. We already said that the yuan is a reserve currency. Let's go with them this time. I mean, it happened back after World War II. It was the United States that was the center of everything. Now things are changing. Is this a good thing? Well, in the beginning, people aren't going to realize anything because everything will be backed by gold. It's in the beginning stages, so everyone will feel comfortable. Everything will thrive. But eventually, we will end up in the same spot. So the solution, get rid of the central bankers. And when you look at the actions of the Federal Reserve, you can see that they are completely planning for this. And we are heading into the next phase. And I mean, right now they have ZIRP. And this is the only thing that is holding the stock market together and keeping everything continually moving upward. Without the zero interest rates, guess what? The whole thing falls apart. Even if they increase it by 0.25 basis points, the cost-free overnight lending to banks and corporations, that pretty much will come to an end. They will not be able to afford continued lending on the massive scale that they've been doing since 2009. This means no more stock buybacks for dying companies like IBM, General Motors, and many others. This means a considerable decline in the markets. And like I said, when they are ready to bring this down, most likely they will increase the interest rates by a small, tiny fraction, just to show everyone that we're in a recovery. This is the signal that they're getting ready to bring down the entire system. It happened back in 2008. Interest rates kept on going up. The system came down. The same thing's going to happen right now. Right now, Russia, the biggest payment system, Kiwi, begins operation in Europe. They started their payment service in Latvia. It will operate in Euro and be available in Russian and English and Latvian languages. And right now they have currently about 149,000 terminals that can be used for money transfers, banking services, and other purposes. So everything is being set up right now. One of Russia's big banks, the largest bank actually, will launch a pilot retail product in yuan only in 2016. China and Japan, they are continually dumping U.S. treasuries. November marked a record month for China in terms of the pace of its liquidation of foreign exchange reserves. The People's Bank of China basically dumped about 87 billion in November. This is about 2.5% drop in 1 month. Japan is doing the same thing. Theirs is a lot smaller. It's about 1% drop in their holdings. But the percentages, they seem small, but the dollar amounts are much larger than the previous treasury dumps. This suggests that there is a growing urgency to get rid of the dollar. And they're continually dumping because they're getting ready for the transition. And this is why everyone has to get ready and prepared, because the entire system is going to collapse. There's no doubt that it's going to happen. And everyone needs to make sure that they're prepared for this. You don't want to be running around at the last second. You want to make sure you have food. You want to make sure you have medical supplies, medicines for those who are in need, maybe diabetes, a heart problem, or anything like that, a weapon to protect your family, cash on hand, gold and silver, toiletries. You name it, you need it. Water, a water filtration system. So basically what we're doing right now is getting prepared for this major collapse, because when it does come, people are going to be running all over the place like crazy. And as the system collapses, we're going to see the value of the dollar decline. It's going to get harder and harder to purchase things, and people are not going to be able to handle this. Now, if you haven't started preparing for anything, you can go to lifereliance.com. They have bug out bags. They have water filtration systems. They have pre-made food. They have seeds. And you can customize your order for whatever you need. But whatever you're doing, make sure you continually do this. Do not stop. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.